Alright, welcome back. This is M-Dog once again. And we're at Amber once again, fishing for carp. And every once in a while it is, I guess, refreshing to have something work the way that you would expect it to work in game. So what I mean by that is, if you've seen other recent videos I've made, I've been doing a lot of carp fishing, and we've used a variety of baits, but a lot of the baits recently have been tutti frutti, right? And the results from that has been really good, both in catching regular carp as well as the occasional rare carp, although my results haven't been quite as good as some folks have in terms of landing the trophy rare carp or whatnot. But one thing I've tried here in this spot tonight is to really increase the size of the baits we're using. Even the hook size, we're up to 4/0 hooks. We've gone to classic pop-up, really large pop-up boilies, 24, 25 as the secondary one, tutti frutti dip. And just based on the bait size alone and hook size, you would expect two things at least. One, that the average size of the fish that you're going to catch would be higher comparatively to the other setups we've been using. And two, you would expect that the bite rate would slow way down. And both of those things are true. And I even took it further. We initially were using a ground bait, a PVA, that was the more typical tutti frutti PVA with all of the additive pellets. So pretty small components making the PVA. And sometimes, in some cases we were adding in like more spice or different fruit flavors to kind of complement the tutti frutti. But just all tutti frutti stuff would work too. So even with the PVA, I switched to a much larger average size component. We're only using the largest size tutti frutti pellets, and we've actually just got straight boilies. So size 20 spice mix, size 20 tutti frutti soluble boilies. And that further slowed down the bite rate, but also seemed to increase the average size of carp. So you have to kind of ignore the time here. It looks like I've been here for almost 5 hours. I've been working tonight, so I've been back and forth a lot. I actually haven't had that much time sitting here fishing, although I can tell you I've fished enough to see that using this size bait and PVA components, we're really only catching 3 to 4 fish a day. Like, that's how much we've slowed down the bite rate. But if you look at the average size, it's really high, including this frame carp trophy. We've only had one rare, but if you hit a rare with this bait setup, I'd say you've got maybe a little bit better chance of it being a much larger size rare, which is kind of nice. So this is obviously not an approach in terms of creating a farm, but it's just kind of cool to see that fishing an active carp spot like this. By the way, we're at 120, 155 over here at G3. We're using a clip of about 25, and we're aiming right here, like we've been taught. So that's what we're doing. In comparison, let me show you, the more common approach, or the approach that I've been using that's gotten a really good bite rate. Let me think, which is the one we want to do right now? I'll do the snowman one, although there's several different ones. So we'll go sinking boilie, tutti frutti, soluble, size 20, and then we'll put corn. You can do tutti corn, spice corn, even we've used peach corn some. We'll just do some tutti red corn. We honestly don't want this huge PVA, but I bet even with that the bite rate's going to be much better. Do we try just keeping the PVA on there, or do I put smaller? Remember, we can now have more than one PVA flavor in the water, And as long as it complements each other, like here's a much more standard. As long as it complements each other, it should be fine. We have found out that it doesn't override anymore. So now we're much more likely to get a much quicker bite rate. Now I've only switched one rod, so we still might have to wait a little bit. But we'll give it a minute and see if we can kind of see this experiment through here. But I just think it's been interesting. I guess there's, for many of you that play this game a lot and do a lot of carp fishing, none of this is going to be a surprise to you. But if you're new to carp fishing, it is worth thinking out all the little things that you can do to change your approach to a spot that can impact the fish that you're catching there. If you're starting with an active spot and, you know, according to what baits and the way you're feeding the water and all that, it can drastically change what your results are going to be. And if you're looking for a farm, I mean, I would say typically if a bait approach like this is working, you're much better off to use this. You're going to have obviously a much better farm. You're going to make way more silver and XP per hour, and you're still going to have a reasonable chance of trophies coming out now and again. But if you are doing something else, playing another game, if you've got an alt account, sometimes it's fun to just sit on a trophy. You know, I mean, just kind of cut down your bite rate, but try to focus in on just catching a few really nice fish. And you can go back and look at some of my other recent videos, but in those videos, you know, we might catch 50 fish, but we might only have 4 of them that are over 10 kilos, right? Where the amount of fish that we're catching over 10 kilos, I mean, we've got over half the fish are 10 kilos or higher. So, and I would argue that, because when we first started out, we're still playing with the PVA recipe. So, I mean, I think it's just gotten higher and higher, the average size, as I've gone. Although the bite rate has also gone lower and lower. And so anyway, it's just interesting. It's stuff to think about. Everything from the hook size to the bait size. Do you have, you know, just one boilie? Do you have double boilies? Do you have a boilie and pellet or boilie and corn like this is? All those things are going to impact. And then the cool thing to me has been seeing how drastic the change was when I changed the PVA ingredients. Not the flavors of the additives and stuff, but the size of the components. It all seemed to play a pretty active role in determining this. So anyway, I don't know if it's helpful for anyone. It's just been a cool experiment for me. And this is, you know, on paper, this is how you would expect it to react when making these changes. And I think it's just nice that it did respond that way. There's actually a pretty active spot at the pond, Amber Pond. So I think I'm actually going to move over there and do some more experimentation along these lines. What is it? Around 80? No, I was just looking at one earlier. Over across from Peg 1 has also still been pretty good for folks. But there's also been a pond spot. I can't remember if it was on VK. It actually might have been on my Discord that I saw that. And you can do this same thing at Bear, you know. Once you find an active spot, you can try to adjust your approach to see how big of a fish you can catch. But you are doing it at the expense of bite rate, and often a pretty dramatic expense in terms of how much silver per hour and how much XP per hour you're going to catch. So, yeah, it must have been on Discord. I'm not going to pull up Discord again right now, but there was an active pond spot. I don't know. I'm either going to do pond or check out across from Peg 1 next. I suspect across from peg 1 there's still maybe a little bit higher percentage of rares, although some rares I think have been coming out of the pond as well. So here's a good example. I mean, we almost immediately have a fish on rod 1 here, and if I kept, now it's nighttime. I mean, it's, you know, it's whatever it is, 9 p.m. or whatever. This is about the time that we could have a bite on the larger setups as well. Like I said, I think on average at this point, I would say you're going to get about 4 fish a day, you know, 4 or 5 fish a day on these really large baits. But the chances of those fish being trophy or pretty big are high. Where this one we just caught on the smaller stuff down to 7 kilos. I haven't had a 7 kilo carp here since, you know, switching the PVA to the big stuff and all that. Those have just stopped coming in basically. So anyway, for what it's worth, that's what I've been up to. That's what I've been experimenting with and discovering. And yeah, it's just cool. Thought I would share it. Okay, as always, thanks for watching. Let me know if you're, there's still a lot of good carp fishing going on in Amber, so I know a lot of you are fishing here. Have you tried these kind of experiments? A lot of you probably have. I think that it's easy to get in the, it's easy to kind of get locked in on whatever the weekly bait is, or even looking on VK or, you know, in your whatever Discord channel you're a part of and seeing the approach that worked for someone else and just kind of copying it. But don't forget, there's always adjustments you can make, full adjustments in terms of trying different baits, but also just adjusting what rig type it is, the size of the bait that you're using. Sometimes that can get the desired effect as well. Okay, tight lines, and I will see you next time.